how I feel. I've been laid up for like fucking 6 years. But unfortunately, we've come to our final song for the ever. On behalf of the guys in Black Sabbath and myself, I just want to say to you, thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Ozzy Osbourne is not an icon molded by glory. He is the product of poverty, chaos, depression, addiction, and near-death experiences. In the world of rock, where many legends fall young and beautiful, Ozzy is the survivor, not because he was stronger, but because he never knew how to stop. With his long black hair, dazed eyes hiding a furious madness, a voice that sounds like an apocalyptic prophecy, and his trademark staggering gait, he made the world listen, even when no one believed he'd survive past 30, let alone step on stage at 76. For over half a century, Ozzy has journeyed from a slum in Birmingham to the throne of heavy metal, from jail cells to Grammy Awards, from a menace to youth to a beloved TV personality, from tabloid scapegoat to eternal pop culture icon. But behind the stage lights and millions of records sold lies a soul in constant turmoil, torn between genius and self-destruction, temptation and survival, pain and the desperate need to be loved. And then, in 2025, he reappears, hunched, voice trembling but eyes still ablaze, on the final stage in his hometown of Birmingham, where it all began. In that moment, no one had any doubt. Ozzy Osbourne is not just the Prince of Darkness, he is a living testament to the miraculous, that even in the most decayed of bodies, an immortal soul can still reside. How does a man who once strangled his wife, bit the head off a bat, battled severe addiction, and suffers from Parkinson's, still become a figure revered by millions? Join Rock Discovery as we trace that breathless journey. From childhood prison, Sabbath's thunder, on-stage madness, to a farewell no one dares to call final. And if you've ever found yourself lost in the dark, maybe you'll understand why the world still can't let go of Ozzy Osbourne. Early life. Ozzy Osbourne was born on December 3, 1948, in Aston, Birmingham, a poor, gray, war-torn place that never made room for dreaming children. In a cramped house just big enough for 8, his parents and 6 siblings, Ozzy grew up surrounded by shouting voices, the smell of coal, exhaustion, and a constant sense of not belonging anywhere. He once said, "I didn't have a childhood. I just survived." From an early age, Ozzy was different. He had dyslexia, couldn't keep up in school, was mocked by classmates as the village idiot, and dismissed by teachers as hopeless. He often skipped school, not to play, but to find a quiet place where no one would ask him to talk, to explain, or to understand anything. That isolation planted a deep-rooted insecurity, one that would later erupt into lifelong depression, panic attacks, and inescapable nightmares. At 15, Ozzy dropped out of school. He drifted between manual labor jobs, slaughterhouse worker, plumber's assistant, wall painter, but none lasted. In frustration and desperation, he followed a group of friends into stealing televisions. Not long after, he was caught and sentenced to 6 weeks in Winson Green prison. His father, John Osbourne, could have paid bail but refused, saying his son needed to learn a lesson. In the darkness of that prison cell, Ozzy learned more than a lesson about freedom. He realized something deeper. No one was coming to save him. He considered taking his own life, but stopped when a fellow inmate hummed a strange melody. That was the first time he felt the redemptive power of music, like a distant roar in the dark, pulling him back from the edge. When the Beatles came on the radio in 1963, Ozzy called it a lightning bolt to the brain. "I heard She Loves You, and everything changed. I didn't want to steal anymore. I wanted a microphone." From that moment, he began searching for a band, learning how to shape his voice, and for the first time in his life, he had a purpose. No one could have guessed that this scream, the sound that would define an entire genre, came from a poor, uneducated boy, fresh out of jail, carrying a loneliness that would haunt him forever. And that was only the beginning. The underground wind called Ozzy was about to become a firestorm when he met three men who would change everything and together formed a band called Black Sabbath. Early career. In 1968, freshly out of jail, dead broke, and still unsure where he belonged, Ozzy Osbourne stumbled upon a handwritten ad that felt like fate. Singer seeks band, influenced by the Beatles and Cream. Scribbled beneath it was his home phone number. Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler, two musicians from a neighboring block, made the call. They met in a damp warehouse, plugged into a battered amp, and the first sound emerged. Slow, heavy, like hell itself being dragged across the floor. The band was first named Earth, later changed to Black Sabbath, inspired by a 1963 Italian horror film. None of them had formal musical training, but that lack of polish gave birth to something completely unheard of. Chaotic, dark, suffocating, and unmistakable. In an era full of flower-powered dreams and anti-war anthems, they delivered the opposite: fear, war, religion, and the madness of the modern soul. Their debut album, Black Sabbath, 1970, recorded in just one day, sent shockwaves across Britain. Critics slammed their sound as unbearable, an assault on musical taste, yet the record sold. Then came Paranoid, with iconic tracks like War Pigs, Iron Man, and Paranoid, launching them into global stardom. Crowds flocked to their shows as if hypnotized by demons. Ozzy howled like a man possessed, head thrashing, eyes rolling white, while the band summoned darkness as if conjuring devils on stage. But Black Sabbath wasn't just music. They were an experience, a voice calling from the darkest corners of the human psyche. Ozzy once said, "I don't sing. I warn, yet with fame came the fall." The band was drowning in drugs, alcohol, sleeping pills, LSD. They toured like the Walking Dead, performing, then smashing things, getting high, passing out backstage, and Ozzy, with his fragile mental state rooted in childhood, fell the hardest. He missed studio sessions, forgot lyrics, and lost control of himself. In 1979, the band met without Ozzy. They made a brutal but necessary decision: to fire the very man who had birthed the soul of Sabbath. No warning, no goodbye hug. Ozzy heard the news from his manager, went silent, and stayed that way in a hotel room for 3 days, drinking, snorting coke, waiting for death. But death didn't come. Instead, a woman walked in, threw open the curtains, hurled the bottles out the window, looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Get up, Ozzy, you're not done yet." Her name was Sharon Osbourne, and from that moment on, a new chapter in the nightmare called Ozzy Osbourne had officially begun. Career success. In 1979, when Ozzy Osbourne was fired by Black Sabbath, no farewell, no pity, he had truly hit rock bottom. For the next 3 months, he locked himself in a hotel room, drowning in alcohol and cocaine, waiting for death to knock. But instead of death, it was Sharon Osbourne who walked in, daughter of infamous music manager Don Osbourne. Sharon didn't come to console him. She came to drag him up, force him to stop self-destructing, and make him do the one thing the world couldn't ignore: sing. Out of that wreckage came Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy Osbourne's debut solo album, 1980, featuring classics like Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, and I Don't Know. Ozzy's music was no longer just a scream from the dark. It had become a symbol of survival, the voice of a man who clawed his way up from hell and turned pain into power. Teaming up with guitar virtuoso Randy Rhoads, Ozzy entered the most brilliant era of his career. Diary of a Madman, 1981, cemented his status as one of the most successful solo artists of the 80s. But tragedy struck again. Randy Rhoads died in a plane crash in 1982, in the middle of a tour. Ozzy was devastated, spiraling into panic and despair, ready to quit music altogether. And once again, it was Sharon who pulled him back. That same year, Ozzy delivered a cultural shock the world would never forget. He bit the head off a live bat on stage in Iowa, an unintentional act that instantly made him a symbol of madness, heresy, and invincibility. This incident, along with urinating on the Alamo Monument in Texas while drunk, led to a 10-year ban from performing in the state. The press hounded him. Religious groups branded him Satan incarnate. He was even sued for his song Suicide Solution, accused of encouraging suicide. And yet, the more he was condemned, the more famous he became. The 1990s marked a turning point. His song, I Don't Want to Change the World, earned him his first Grammy, 1994. Around the same time, Ozzy and Sharon launched Ozzfest, an annual metal festival that helped launch bands like Slipknot, Korn, and System of a Down into stardom. Ozzy was no longer just a legend. He became a patron saint for a new generation of metal. In 2001, he took America by storm when he and his family starred in the reality show The Osbournes on MTV. His image, mumbling, fumbling, shuffling around in pajamas with a little dog, stunned audiences. The Prince of Darkness was also a confused, lovable old man. And yet, it was that authenticity that won over a new generation. He was insane, yes, but he was real. When Black Sabbath reunited in the early 2010s, Ozzy returned with the veterans for the album 13, 2013, which debuted at #1 in both the UK and the US, a first in Sabbath's career. Their Farewell the End tour, 2016 to 2017, closed the circle. A band once labeled cultural trash, now sold out stadiums worldwide, honored in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and hailed as the fathers of heavy metal. Ozzy Osbourne was once exiled from his own band, banned from states, and blamed for corrupting youth. Yet somehow, he rose, he screamed, and he turned every downfall into a crown. Not everyone can become a legend, but Ozzy did, in a way no one else would dare to imitate. Controversies and rumors. For over half a century, Ozzy Osbourne has not only been an artist, he has been the eye of the storm, a figure the public never quite knew whether to worship or fear. Straddling the line between genius and monster, between culture and blasphemy, Ozzy has never backed down. He lives within controversy as if that's where he truly belongs. From his early days in Black Sabbath, he was branded a Satanist, a devil worshiper spreading darkness to the youth. Songs like Black Sabbath, Mr. Crowley, and Revelation, Mother Earth, were accused of luring listeners into occultism, especially as his stage shows bathed in fake blood, skulls, and shrieks. Conservative religious groups in the US burned his records in the streets, while tabloids called him a moral threat to teenagers. The tipping point came in 1982. Ozzy bit the head off a live bat on stage in Des Moines, Iowa. He thought it was a rubber toy tossed by a fan, until it bit back. The crowd was horrified. Ozzy was rushed for emergency rabies shots. The incident instantly became a dark legend, revolting and irresistible. It transformed Ozzy from a singer into a cultural myth, someone who didn't just perform music, but forced society to question the limits of insanity. In 1984, he faced another firestorm with the Suicide Solution lawsuit. A 19-year-old boy took his own life while listening to the track, and his family sued Ozzy, claiming the lyrics encouraged suicide. Ozzy maintained the song was not a call to die, but a warning about the dangers of alcohol, written after the death of his friend Bon Scott, AC/DC. The court ruled him not guilty, but the trial left a deep imprint on his reputation, someone whose voice could influence minds, literally. At the same time, Ozzy's offstage behavior blurred the line between performance and reality. In 1982, he urinated on the Alamo Monument while drunk, leading to a 10-year ban from performing in Texas. He was only forgiven after a public apology and a donation to a historical preservation society. Still, the image of a man mocking tradition stuck in America's collective memory. In the 2000s, after becoming a reality TV star, Ozzy faced a new kind of rumor. Ozzy is immortal. Many couldn't believe someone who'd spent decades addicted to alcohol, cocaine, LSD, sleeping pills, and more was still alive. In 2010, a U.S. genetics company actually analyzed his DNA and discovered a rare mutation that allowed his body to process drugs more efficiently than average. The media dubbed him a product of reverse evolution, a living example of biological transcendence. But the most unsettling rumors came from illness. Since 2019, tabloids have screamed, "Is Ozzy dead? Ozzy in coma? Ozzy suffers total memory loss," every time he was hospitalized or postponed a tour. His daughter Kelly Osbourne once had to clarify, "My dad isn't dead. He's relearning to walk. And yes, he still listens to rock music every morning." Perhaps Ozzy was never meant to live outside controversy. Controversy is his oxygen. Amid screams, insults, and endless speculation, he never explains himself. He simply exists, like a mythical creature crawling out of society's worst nightmare and shaking it to its core with music. Personal life. If Ozzy Osbourne's career was a journey of clawing through death and outrage to claim rock's throne, then his personal life was a violent storm, where love, violence, addiction, and redemption spun so tightly together they could never be untangled. His first marriage, to Thelma Riley, a schoolteacher, ended in exhaustion and despair. Ozzy later admitted, "I was a terrible husband, an absent father. All I knew was drinking, snorting, and passing out." His first two children grew up virtually without him, and Ozzy himself said he remembers nothing of that time except the smell of alcohol and the sound of fighting. Then came Sharon, not as some romantic savior, but as the only person who dared look Ozzy in the eye while he was unraveling. Sharon, part manager, part partner, part lifeline, helped resurrect him from the ashes of Black Sabbath and build the solo career that would redefine him. But their love was never smooth. In 1989, during a heavy binge, Ozzy attempted to strangle Sharon and said, "It's time for you to die." When police arrived, he was arrested and temporarily removed from his family. But Sharon, instead of walking away, chose to forgive. She believed that wasn't the real Ozzy, but a version hijacked by drugs and mental illness. After that incident, Ozzy committed to his first serious rehab. "Sharon didn't just save me from myself. She taught me what it meant to live with responsibility. Family life remained a war zone." When the Osbournes' reality show aired on MTV in 2002, the world witnessed a different Ozzy, a grumbling, aging, confused but sincere father, a husband struggling as his wife ran everything, from finances to, quite literally, breakfast. Daughter Kelly battled painkiller addiction. Son Jack fell into drug use as a teenager and was later diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS. The Osbourne family teetered on collapse more than once, but never broke. Even in 2016, when Ozzy's affair became public and Sharon filed for divorce after more than 3 decades of marriage, the pattern repeated. Once Ozzy acknowledged the infidelity and entered treatment for sex addiction and other mental health issues, Sharon came back. "I can't live with him, but I can't live without him," she said. At 70, Ozzy once broke down on live television when speaking about Sharon. "I've hurt her too much. If I lose Sharon, I won't survive." In a world where rock stars change wives like guitars, Ozzy and Sharon's love isn't a fairy tale. It's a painful, patient ballad, scarred and stormy, but unbroken. Maybe it's that very chaos that binds them. Two wounded souls, learning to love by surviving the times they nearly destroyed each other. Legacy and influence. If Ozzy Osbourne was once seen as the face of cultural decay, today he stands as an inseparable part of modern music history. What's strange is this. His legacy wasn't born from perfection. It came from the relentless survival of a battered soul that refused to vanish. First and foremost, Ozzy is one of the founding fathers of heavy metal, not just musically but spiritually. The slow, crushing sound, the dense riffs of Black Sabbath fused with his doomsday, wailing vocals, carved out an entirely new path, one that would lead generations to follow. Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Pantera, Slipknot, all carry the imprint of Sabbath and Ozzy. But his legacy doesn't rest solely in classics like Paranoid, Iron Man, or Crazy Train. It lies in his ability to turn difference into power, to make the bizarre into a new standard. Ozzy never sang well in the traditional sense, nor was he a guitar virtuoso, but he was the soul of the stage, the one who could scream out pain on behalf of millions who felt abandoned in the dark. Ozzfest, the music festival Ozzy and Sharon founded in 1996, is the clearest proof of his timeless influence. For more than a decade, Ozzfest became the launchpad for new metal bands, a place where being chosen by Ozzy meant the world was watching. Slipknot, System of a Down, Disturbed, Lamb of God, all once rookies at Ozzfest, all now icons in their own right. In terms of accolades, Ozzy has won a Grammy, was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Black Sabbath in 2006, has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and has been honored by Rolling Stone and VH1 as one of the greatest singers of all time. But more importantly, he achieved all this while being utterly himself. No filters, no reinvention to suit trends, no image management to gain approval. In pop culture, Ozzy became a phenomenon, appearing in animated shows like South Park and Family Guy, starring in comic books, being memified, and featured in talk shows, reality TV, even genetic labs. The Osbournes wasn't just a show, it opened the floodgates for celebrity family TV, paving the way for shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. From a controversial rocker, Ozzy evolved into a bizarrely beloved national grandpa across all walks of life. And the most remarkable part? He never considered himself a legend. When asked how he's still here after everything, Ozzy simply laughed. "I don't know. I'm not good at anything, but I know how to scream." Ozzy Osbourne's legacy isn't in charts. It's in the hearts of misfits, of those who felt out of place. He is living proof that you don't have to be perfect to be remembered. You just have to be real, even if that reality scares the world enough to wish it could forget. Final years. From 2019 onward, Ozzy Osbourne began to slow down. Not because he wanted rest, but because his body had been worn down after half a century of struggle. A fall in his bedroom caused serious displacement of the metal rods, stabilizing his spine, leading to a cascade of neurological complications, chronic pain, and loss of mobility. Then came the Parkinson's diagnosis. Not entirely unexpected, yet still a blow to the defiant ego of the man once known as the Prince of Darkness. Ozzy, who once thrashed his head through the night and screamed before 80,000 fans, now had to relearn how to walk, one step at a time, with a physical therapy frame. He canceled tours, postponed albums, broke promises to fans. At one point, he bitterly admitted, "I don't think I'll ever be back. I have nothing left to prove and no strength left to fight." In February 2023, he announced his retirement from live performances. "I can't stand on stage and pretend I'm still able. I love you, but I can't keep lying." For the first time in his career, Ozzy didn't scream. He simply fell silent. And the world fell silent with him. But like someone who never learned how to walk away, he came back. On July 5th, 2025, in his hometown of Birmingham, where it all began, Ozzy held his final performance titled Back to the Beginning. More than 42,000 people gathered at Villa Park. Millions tuned in online, and nearly $190 million was raised for Parkinson's research. On stage, Ozzy didn't stand. He sat. He didn't roar. He whispered. But every word he sang echoed like a gentle goodbye. No drama, no regret. Just pure love for music and for the audience he cherished to the end. Less than 3 weeks later, on the early morning of July 22nd, 2025, a medical helicopter landed at the Osbourne family estate in Buckinghamshire. Ozzy had gone into severe respiratory failure. Despite intensive care from a specialized medical team, he passed away in the arms of his wife, Sharon, and their children, after a series of complications related to Parkinson's and heart failure. He departed peacefully at the age of 76. The family released a brief statement, quiet, free of spectacle or commercialization. Ozzy left us in peace. He's no longer in pain, and he knew the world was still with him. The global music community was shaken. Millions changed their profile pictures to black, shared their memories. The first time hearing Iron Man, the shock of seeing Ozzy bite the head off a bat, the tears from Mama, I'm coming home. In Birmingham, fans gathered at the Black Sabbath bench memorial, lit candles, played music, and embraced in silence. Fellow musicians paid tribute, not out of obligation, but because they knew the roots had been torn away. James Hetfield, Metallica. Without Ozzy, there'd be no us. He was the first scream I ever heard, and I never forgot it. Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters. Ozzy was laughter, darkness, music that never apologized. We needed him to know we were real. Rob Halford, Judas Priest. We've lost the spiritual father of an entire generation, Kelly Osbourne. I didn't just lose my father, I lost the best friend I ever had. Though no official funeral announcement was made, sources confirmed the family would hold a private memorial in Birmingham, just as Ozzy had wished. Don't turn my death into a stage, just play a song and let me go. In his final years, Ozzy was no longer a legend, no longer the center of controversy. He was simply an old man, with tired eyes, trembling hands, and an unbreakable loyalty to the one thing that saved him, music. And perhaps in that silence, his roar echoed louder than ever before. Ozzy Osbourne didn't die on stage, amid screaming guitars or blazing pyrotechnics. He didn't leave this world at the peak of fame, nor did he quietly fade into obscurity. He chose to go after saying his final words, not through a speech, but through a song. Not in the spotlight, but in the arms of his family. And perhaps that was the most beautiful kind of release a rebellious soul like his could have ever dreamed of. Ozzy was never a hero. He battled addiction, caused destruction, and hurt the very people who loved him most. He was fired, sued, banned from performing, mocked. But he never backed down, never hid, never played the victim. He turned all that chaos into music, music that wasn't perfect, but chillingly real. He didn't inspire through moral lessons, but by daring to live wrongly and daring to keep living. In a world obsessed with polish and terrified of failure, Ozzy stood out like a jagged crack where light could slip through. And that's what made him great. Not because he never fell, but because he screamed from the very place he had fallen. So if you've ever felt lost, ever been judged, ever felt like you didn't belong, remember, Ozzy Osbourne was there, and he didn't stay silent. Are you still here with us? Leave your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to Rock Discovery as we continue to tell the survival stories of those who didn't need to be perfect to become legends.